Recording in progress.
All right, everybody, let's bring the Board of Adjustments meeting to order. It's April 3rd, 1:30. Can we have a determination of quorum, please?
Rob Pierce,
Present?
Don Christensen, Peter Gashon,
Here.
Kathy Julian,
Present.
Leo Harishny.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Wonderful. Will you all please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. May we please have the ethics law announcements? Ms.
Sure.
Sickelman?
Board members are reminded that if with respect to any matter or any person coming before the board today, you've received a gift or loan, you have a pecuniary interest, you have a commitment in a private capacity such as family, employment, business, or similar relationship, or if you've provided representation or counseling before an agency to a person or entity for compensation within the last year on a matter being considered, you must disclose that gift, loan, interest, commitment, or prior representation at the time the matter is being considered. Furthermore, you must abstain from deliberation or voting on the matter if it's clear the gift, loan, interest, commitment, or prior representation would materially affect the independence of judgment of a reasonable person. Under Board of Adjustment rules, it is important to disclose any interest or any contact you've had outside this meeting with any matter coming before the board today. This is being held as a hybrid meeting in County Commission chambers and via Zoom. To log on via Zoom, use the Join a Meeting on the Zoom website and enter meeting ID 872-156-75749. The meeting is also available via telephone by dialing 1-669-900-9128 and entering the same meeting ID number and pressing pound. For those wishing to provide public comment via Zoom, log into the Zoom webinar and use the raise hand feature during any public comment period. To provide public comment via telephone, press *9 to raise hand and *6 to mute and unmute.
Wonderful, thank you. Mr. Lloyd, can we have the appeal procedure?
Yeah, most decisions rendered by the Board of Adjustment are appealable to the Board of County Commissioners. If you disagree with the decision of the Board of Adjustment and qualify as an aggrieved person or party, you may appeal in writing within 10 calendar days from the date that the decision being appealed is reduced to writing, filed with the Secretary of the Board of Adjustment, and mailed to the original applicant in the proceeding being appealed in accordance with Washoe County Code. Please call the planning staff immediately at 775-328-3610 for information on the appeal procedure and the application fee.
Wonderful, thank you. At this time, I'd like to open up general public comment. Do we have any general public comment?
For general public comment, I do not have any in chambers or via Zoom.
All right, we'll close general public comment. Move on to item number 6, approval of today's agenda. I have no changes. Can I get a motion to approve as written, please?
I move that the last month's meeting minutes be approved as written. Agenda.
Okay, and I'll second it. We have a motion and a second for today's agenda. Can all those in favor say aye?
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. All right, moving on to item number 7, approval of the March 6th draft minutes. I assume everybody got a chance to look at it. Do we have any changes or comments or anything on that? If not, can I get a motion, please?
Peter Gashon, for the record, I'll move to approve the March 6, 2025 minutes.
Okay, we have a motion, and I'll second that. Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. All right, moving on to the public hearing items. Item number 8A is a special use permit case number WSUP 25-0002 for Lake Shore SFD renovation. Mr. Lloyd is presenting for hearing and discussion and possible action to approve a special use permit per Washoe County Code Table 110.220.385 for construction of a 5,304 square foot family residence with a 572 square foot attached garage. The existing 2558 square foot single family dwelling will be demolished and the detached garage will be attached. Presenting today is Mr. Lloyd in place of Julie Olander.
Secretary Lloyd, you may have to turn the power on, the clicker.
I believe it's on? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. think I got it now. I believe it's working. It should be. Yep, there it goes. Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. For the record, I'm Trevor Lloyd with Planning and Building. I'm filling in for Julie Olander, who is on vacation this week. For this item before you today, this is as indicated by the chair, a request for a special use permit for a new residence. The request is required per Washoe County Code, Section 110-220, 385. In these situations, we have 3 of them before you today. Each of these are for either a new residence or additions or expansions of existing residential uses within residential neighborhoods. And we recognize that it is somewhat excessive. So I just wanted to bring to the attention of this board that staff is currently working through a process of updating the Tahoe area plan in order to remove this requirement for special use permits in residential zones. This is very unique. We don't have this anywhere in the county. And so wanted to bring that to your attention before we get into the details of this request. Again, this is a request for a demolition of an existing residence and the construction of a new 5,304 square foot residence within the Tahoe area plan. All right. The proposed development is located at 1713 Lakeshore Boulevard in the Tahoe East Shore Regulatory Zone in Incline Village. As you can see on the slide above, with the site plan, the site plan shows that shows the location of the proposed development. Currently, there is an existing garage that will remain, but will be connected to the proposed residence by a covered, an enclosed walkway. Again, the site is currently developed with an existing residence that is being proposed to be demolished. All right, the setbacks on the property are 20 feet in the front and rear and 5 feet from the sides. However, Section 110-220-60 of the Washoe County Code allows for structures to be placed within the front yard setback if they're in compliance with a number of criteria, assuming that there's a slope in the front yard that is over 20%. There's also a requirement that the structure must be a minimum of 15 feet from the edge of pavement. Per the plans, it shows that the garage is, in fact, over 15 feet. It's about 22 feet from the edge of pavement. Okay, the proposed plan shows the proposed elevation shows that the house will be 3 stories in height, meeting the minimum height requirements per the Tahoe area plan. And again, the floor plans show the covered walkway connecting the proposed house with the existing, the location of the existing garage. There are a number of criteria that are required to be identified and analyzed, and they are analyzed in the staff report. They refer to flood, seismic, avalanche, wildfire, landslide, and tsunami impacts. This property was noticed per Washoe County Code. There were 80 parcels that were noticed as part of the special use permit request. Staff is able to make all 4 of the required findings as provided in the staff report and offers the following motion for your consideration, and I'm available for any questions that you have at this time.
Great, thank you. Does the applicant have a presentation? Behind you, on the right.
Hi, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Aubrey Powell for the record. We don't have a presentation today, but I'm available for questions. And on Zoom, we have the land use consultant, Corinne Hoyda, who's also available for specific project questions.
Okay, great, thank you. Does any member of the board have any questions
Yes,
right now? Go ahead.
Kathy Julian, for the record. I'm not sure who would be best to answer this question. The This project, this is familiar to me because I was attending both an earlier CAB meeting, I think in 2019, and also a planning commission meeting in 2021 when an abandonment happened that provided about 3,200 square feet of county parcel to the private landowner. And in that conversation, there was discussion about a right-of-way, a public right-of-way that was also part of, I think, the larger parcel. So my query is, does this construction impact at all on that public right-of-way that I understood was still there, perhaps not on their property, but adjacent to it? And I'm just querying whether that right-of-way still exists. Can you tell from there?
Can you pull that back up? The presentation, yeah. And do you happen to know the answer?
I don't, but, because
I was going to look.
yeah, Corinne,
And we do have Karen Hoyda.
yeah, that's the land use consultant.
Karen, if you could please state your first and last name for the record.
Hi, this is Corinne Hoyda with Basin Strategies representing the applicant.
The floor is yours if you would like to comment on Member Julian's question.
Thank you. Yes, thank you for the question. That right-of-way, yes, as you can see on the map on the screen there, 20 feet, so that adjacent right-of-way associated with Romance Avenue was partially abandoned. A 20-foot wide section was abandoned, but a 30-foot wide section remains. As you can see, the gap there between the two APNs, and this proposed project is by and large within the footprint of the existing residence, so it is not encroaching in that right-of-way at all, and it's set back even more than required from that side of the property.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Do we have any other questions right now?
For the record, just curious, where are we with TRPA and the approval process?
Yes, this is Corinne Hoyda again speaking. We received approval from TRPA. The TRPA hearings officer reviewed and approved the project on February 6th, 2025, and that approval was provided with this application.
Great, thanks.
You're welcome.
Do we have any more questions?
Yeah, Leo Harishny for the record. I'm curious, and this may just be for my interest, but I was reading through here that this property does exist below the altitude level for the tsunami recommendation, or the SAISH wave recommendations. Has that been evaluated and written or checked off by somewhere in the process? That caught my eye. I was kind of curious.
Yes, that was, so my understanding is that Washoe County is required to notify the applicant when that is the case, when portion of their property is within the tsunami zone. And Julie Olander did notify us, and we confirmed receipt. And I think that is the last page of the staff report shows that correspondence.
So it's just a requirement to inform the property owner is all?
That's my understanding, yes.
That's fine. Thank you. That was it.
Thank you.
Do we have any other questions right now? Okay, let's open up public comment. Do we have any public comment on the matter?
I have no public comment in chambers or hands raised via Zoom.
Okay, we'll close public comment, bring it back to the board. Go ahead.
Just a discussion point. Just a discussion point, and I just want to go on the record with this. This is not particular to our decision here, but I find that we have a problem on a county level that we are, essentially, the county is ceding own property, lakefront property on Lake Tahoe, and has done in the past, cede it to the property owner, who then turns around and builds for nothing, and then turns around and builds a larger construction, a larger house, and reaps the benefit of that. And the county, who has ceded ownership of lakesfront property in Incline Village on Tahoe, has received nothing more than perhaps an increase in some assessed value at some point in time through property taxes. And I just want to go on record. I can support this because there's no reason not to support this particular item, but I find it problematic that our county is ceding property, lakefront property on Lake Tahoe for nothing, and then we find construction happening and property owners receiving value from that. So just wanted to put it on the record. I believe I said that at the time during that Planning Commission meeting, some comment to that effect. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Does anybody have any questions, comments, discussion? No? Okay. With that, I'll entertain a motion.
Peter Gishan for the record. I move that after giving reasoned consideration to the information contained in the staff report and information received during the public hearing, the Washoe County Board of Adjustment approve with conditions special use permit case number WSUP 25-0002 for Basin Strategies Planning and Consulting, with the conditions included as Exhibit A to this matter, having made all 5 findings in accordance with Washoe County Code Section 110.810.30.
Okay. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Leo Harishny, I second.
Okay. Any further discussion? Okay. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Motion passes. Thank you. That moves us on to 8B, which is another special use permit, case number WSUP 25-0003 for a parking deck rebuild and storage addition for hearing, discussion, and possible action to approve a special use permit per Washoe County Code Table 110.220.245 for an existing 5,528 square foot single-family residence with a 686 square foot garage, where the applicant is requesting to rebuild the existing parking deck with a storage area below the deck. And presenting in the place of Julie Olander is Mr. Trevor Lloyd.
Thank you once again, Trevor Lloyd, Planning and Building. So, yeah, as the chair indicated, that this is a request for a special use permit for the rebuild of an existing parking deck and the construction of a storage area below the parking deck. And it is indicated in Washoe County Code, Section 110.220.245. A special use permit is required in this case for any development within this regulatory zone. The property is considered legal non-conforming because no special use permit has been issued for the residents. The property is located at 490 Teresa Court in the Crystal Bay Regulatory Zone in the Crystal Bay area of Tahoe area plan. And as shown on the site plan, the area highlighted in yellow that development is already existing, but there is a request to refurbish the driveway and construct a storage area underneath. So again, it's not a new residential construction. It is essentially an expansion of an existing residential development. The request, again, is to refurbish the existing parking deck and construct the storage area underneath the parking deck. As you can see here in the elevations, where currently underneath the parking deck is vacant, they wish to enclose that and provide for storage. Here's photos of the existing residence. As indicated previously, in Section 220-125, there is sections involving natural hazards, including flood, seismic, avalanche, fire, wildfire, landslide, and tsunami. Those issues have been analyzed in your staff report. Now, in this case, and I will move to the next slide. Let me return back, because staff is recommending 2 additional conditions associated with this use based on the fact that this property is in fact located within an identified avalanche zone. It is within the moderate avalanche zone location, and due to those requirements, staff is recommending the addition of two conditions. They be that prior to the issuance of the building permit, the applicant shall execute a hold harmless or indemnification agreement to the satisfaction of planning and building for the purpose of acknowledging the location of the property within a moderate risk avalanche zone, and to indemnify Washoe County of any liability associated with the avalanche risk. The second is really a code provision, but this ensures that during review, staff and the applicants are aware of this code provision, that the proposed development shall comply with the natural hazards provision of Section 110, 220, 125 of the Washoe County Development Code. This property was noticed per code, and a total of 48 neighbors were noticed of this special use permit. Staff is able to make all 4 of the required findings and offers the following motion for your consideration. That concludes my presentation, and I'm available to answer your questions at this time.
Okay. Does the applicant wish to make a presentation? Are they here? Are they on Zoom?
I see the applicant representative,
Okay.
Elise Fit. If you could please unmute and state your first and last name for the record.
Hi, this is Julie Souls with Lease Fett & Associates. I don't have a presentation, but I am available to answer any questions you might have.
Wonderful, thank you. Does the board have any questions at this time? No? Okay, let's open up public comment. Do we have any public comment?
I have no public comment in chambers or via Zoom.
Okay, close public comment, bring it back to the board. Once again, anybody have any questions, discussion? If not, I'll open it up for a motion.
Okay, I'll make the motion. Dr. Julian. For the record, I move that after giving reasoned consideration to the information contained in the staff report and information received during the public hearing, the Washoe County Board of Adjustment approve with conditions special use permit case number WSUP 25-0003 for Crystal Palazzo LLC, with the conditions included as Exhibit A to this matter, having made all 5 findings in accordance with the Washoe County Code Section 110.810.30.
And then, Mr. Lloyd, you had 2 additional conditions. Can we get those so she can read those in, please?
To include additional conditions, prior to issuance of a building permit, the applicant shall execute a hold harmless or indemnification agreement to the satisfaction of the Planning and Building Division for the purposes acknowledging the location of the property within a moderate risk avalanche zone, and to indemnify Washoe County for any liability associated with the avalanche risk. The applicant shall submit a copy of the executed document to the Planning and Buildings Division. In addition, the proposed development shall comply with the natural hazards provisions of Section 110.220.125 of the Washoe County Development Code.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Leo Harishny for the record, a second.
Okay, Mr. Lloyd, I just want to ask you, the applicant is okay with the additional conditions, correct?
Well, the second one is in fact code, and I believe the applicant is on the line, and I want to make sure that they're comfortable with the hold harmless requirement.
Okay.
Yes, we're comfortable with that. TRPA requires
Okay.
the same thing, so it's pretty standard.
Okay, I just want to make sure. Thank you. All right, so we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? No? Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. All right, motion passes. Thank you. That brings us on to 8C, Special Use Permit Case Number WSUP 25-0004 for the Rob Marie Model for possible action for hearing, discussion, and possible action to approve a special use permit for Washoe County Code Table 110.220.215, remodel an existing 3,161 square foot single-family residence with a 585 square foot garage. Once again, in the place of Julie Olander is Mr. Trevor Lloyd. Mr. Lloyd, the floor is yours.
All right. Once again, Trevor Lloyd with Planning and Building. As indicated by the chair, this is a request for a remodel of an existing residence. The requirement for the special use permit is required in Section 110.220.215 for a special single-family residence. This is considered a legal non-conforming use because no special use permit has yet to be obtained. The property is located at 17683 Bridge Court in the Tahoe Incline Village 5 regulatory zone. Again, the request is to remodel an existing house, which is 2,524 square feet of living space on the main floor and 637 square feet of living space in the basement. The remodel will not expand the existing footprint, but the existing deck will be expanded from 312 square feet to 336 square feet over the garage. Let's see. There will be additional remodel that will include essentially an exterior facelift, refinishing, rebuilt deck, replacing of windows, remodeling of bathrooms, and adding a new gas fireplace. As shown on the site plan, again, the property is the current the residence is existing, and so there is no expansion of the footprint of the building. There's a site of the proposed facelift after the remodel of the property. Again, staff analyzed all of the natural hazard identified in Section 110.220.125 as found in your staff report. The property was properly noticed, and 42 individual property owners were noticed as part of the special use permit request. Staff is able to make all 4 of the required findings and offers the following motion for your consideration, and I'm available for any questions that you have.
All right, wonderful, thank you. Does the applicant wish to make a presentation? Does the applicant wish to make a presentation?
We have Julie Souls. If you'll please unmute and say your first and last name for the record.
Yes, this is Julie Souls with Elise Fett and Associates. We don't have a presentation, but we are available if you have any questions.
Wonderful, thank you. Does the board have any questions this time? No? Okay, I'd like to open up public comment. Do we have any public comment?
I have no public comment in chambers or via Zoom.
Okay, close public comment, bring it back to the board. Do we have any discussion? Okay, I'll open it up for a motion. I get a motion?
Kathy Julian, for the record, I move that after giving reasoned consideration to the information contained in the staff report and information received during the public hearing, the Washoe County Board of Adjustment approve with conditions special use permit case number WSUP 25-0004 for Robb Family Trust, with the conditions included as Exhibit A to this matter, having made all 5 findings in accordance with the Washoe County Code Section 110.810.30.
Wonderful. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
For the record, Don Christensen, I second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any final discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Motion passes. Brings us on to item number D, special use permit case number WSUP 25-0007 for Village Green grading. For possible action, for hearing, discussion, and possible action to approve a special use permit for major grading involving excavation of approximately 36,000 cubic yards of material, importing approximately 60,000 cubic yards of material, and distributing approximately 801 and 9,000 square feet, or 18.4 acres, on the site to prepare a site for the future development in compliance with the approved condition letter of map revision from FEMA. Presenting once again is Mr. Lloyd in the place of Julie Olander.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, Trevor Lloyd with Planning and Building. As indicated by the chair, the request is for grading to bring a property into compliance with an approved CLOMAR, a conditional letter of map revision, and to prepare the site for future development. As indicated, the proposal is to grade a little over 18 acres and raise the elevation involving excavation of approximately 36,000 cubic yards of material and importing approximately 60,000 cubic yards of earth and material and disturbing a little over 18 acres, 18.4 acres of the site. The property is located on the south side of Calle de la Plata, several hundred feet to the east of the intersection of Pyramid Highway and Calle de la Plata. This is located within the Village Green Industrial development. All right. As indicated, this is a request to bring in significant dirt fill material in order to raise this property out of the current flood zone and to make certain improvements for the stormwater and to divert stormwater to the detention facility immediately to the east. As indicated, the special use permit is for grading of the two parcels totaling 21 acres in size. The volume and area both trigger the thresholds or exceed the thresholds for major grading, which does require the approval of a special use permit. There is an existing house on the site. The applicant has indicated that the house will be demolished, sounds like by the end of June, to accommodate the grading. And as indicated, there is an approved conditional letter of map revision, a CLOMAR, from FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency. And this proposed grading is in compliance with the requirements of that CLOMAR. The site is located within a flood zone, a Zone A and an AO flood zones. So showing on the slide above is the site and the existing flood zones shown in that blue color. And then let me move to the next slide. This is the proposed plan and the impacts of the resulting grading on site with the channel along the east property boundary, diverting the flows to the north and into the existing detention pond, the existing detention facility, which is immediately west of this site. And what this shows is that it will significantly reduce the overall flooding potential of these properties and several of the surrounding properties based on these flood maps. Let me return back to the proposal. So again, the applicant is proposing a diversion channel along the eastern property line. There is an existing flood control channel that was constructed along Calle de la Plata at the north end of the site that this will tie into. And again, the grading will mitigate the flood risk, improve drainage patterns, and ensure compliance with FEMA's regulations. Additionally, the grading will modify the elevations on site, raising the portions of the site to reduce the floodplain encroachment while maintaining proper stormwater management and minimizing off-site impacts. This project was properly noticed. 64 of the surrounding neighbors received notice of this request. Staff is able to make all of the required findings as provided in your staff report, and we offer the following motion for your consideration. I believe the applicant is here. Also, our senior licensed engineer, Janelle Thomas, is also available for questions if you have any.
Great, thank you. Would the applicant like to make a presentation at this time?
John Browning with Tectonics Design Group. We don't have a presentation, but we are here to answer any questions.
Can you just please state your name for the record?
John Browning.
Okay, sorry, I didn't.
Sorry about that.
Okay, wonderful, thank you. Does any members of the board have any questions at this time?
Kathy Julian, for the record, I would like to have the applicant's representative or the county respond to the letter that we received from the Bridle Path Homeowners Association about their concerns, and explain exactly how the concerns raised by those residents during their neighborhood meeting were addressed by the project.
Janelle Thomas, Senior Licensed Engineer for the record. Yes, so the complaint, I believe, as I recall, concerns that were raised were regarding additional flooding that may occur post-construction of this particular site. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I'd like to walk us through our general process for development within Washoe County, which includes review of the proposed improvements. We also will take into consideration all of the design criteria that is contained within our Truckee Meadows Regional Drainage Manual and our code in order to manage stormwater management or manage the stormwater runoff from a particular site that is being developed. This particular site does have a CLOMAR, a conditional letter of map revision, that has been reviewed and approved by FEMA. That was submitted under the approval and acceptance of that report by Washoe County staff. Those improvements that are included in that CLOMAR application are what are being proposed today. Those improvements will negate any kind of additional runoff to the southern property owners. Therefore, there should be no concerns from additional runoff being conveyed onto the Bridle Path properties. Does that make sense?
Yes, that makes sense. I think it would be helpful could we have the map again and just show where the Bridle Path properties are?
Sure.
And clarify that for anyone listening online?
So if you look at the southern portion, north is pointing up in this particular exhibit. South of the particular parcel that is in question right now, which is not shaded, that is indicating that the floodplain has been mitigated and is now channelized in that eastern channel. And so the properties to the south, to the bottom of your screen, those are the properties that are Bridle Path properties.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have any other questions at this time? Seeing nobody, let's open up public comment. Have any public comment?
I have Dan Engler, followed by Dan Herman.
Dan Engler, thank you for hearing me out. So if you want to pull that slide we just had up back up for me, please. So my house is the house to the far right of your screen, right in that bluish area right there. With the raising of the proposed property and the elevation change, there's no absorption of this extra water. It's going to go into the drainage ditch, which then flows right into the retention pond, which is to the left of your screen. That pond has not been cleaned out in the last two major flood events that we've had, and I've called the county a couple different times to get it cleaned out. With the rise of the retention pond, there's not enough water to hold it, so then it overflows across Pyramid Highway and goes on down farther. I don't know why that's not being cleaned out, but my concern is that with less absorption, more water is going to run to the retention pond. It's not been reduced from the last two flood events to hold its capacity that we pay taxes on every month, every quarter. So I want to just go on record that that needs to be looked at, and why it's not being cleaned out, I don't know. But thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Dan Herman, followed by Joyce Field. Yes.
So where is the?
See the white-sized, paper-sized?
Yeah,
Try to.
right
There you go.
there you go.
It looks like they can see it.
Perfect. Can you hold this for me, Trevor?
Just be a few minutes, thank you. My name's Dan Herman. I live about a quarter-mile away from this proposed project. I've got some real problems with it. Just start with the CLOMAR, which is the conditional letter of map revision. It implies that on page Exhibit E, page 53, that this whole property is in the floodplain. It is not. It is not. This is the floodplain. This is the parcel 09. This is the floodplain right here at the top. Okay? There's one tiny little corner right there that is in the floodplain. The applicant is trying to imply that this whole area is in the floodplain. I took this off the assessor's map this morning at Washoe County for this parcel that shows floodplain. All the other blue is in the floodplain. This developer is trying to jump the gun, put the cart before the horse to do a leveling of the two parcels, approximately 20 acres. That's good, Trevor, thank you. And can you put the other one up that you have? So this is what the developer is implying that where the floodplain is on this whole area. It is not. It is not. This is a LOMAR, and it says to the right on my computer, this is a LOMAR. They're asking for a CLOMAR. Why are the feds getting involved in this? It's not in the floodplain. So all the right in the center, can you point it out from the southern boundary to the northern boundary? This is not in the floodplain, these two parcels. So I beat that good enough, but it's in, I don't know how the developers or why they're doing this. So the second point is the developer's requesting to move 36,000 cubic yards and import 60,000 cubic yards of fill. A dump truck normally carries less than 15 cubic yards. They're asking to move 60,000 cubic yards imported. Those are trucks going in through a two-lane road into our neighborhoods. So if you take 60,000 cubic yards, divide it by 15 cubic yards that a normal dump truck would carry, it's 4,000 dump truck loads infill on this property, and they're not even in the floodplain. Again, they're putting the cart before the horse. The applicant does not have a project. The applicant should come back and follow the normal procedures when he has a project and do whatever mitigation he needs to do for drainage then. Thank you.
Thank you.
Joyce Field.
Hi, my name is Joyce Field. I've lived for 30 years in Bridle Path Homes, and I've seen all the things coming and going. I understand you got our letter about our questioning things. We did not get good notices. When you send them out, you're sending them to people within a certain distance. We do have a lot of nice property out there, and our homes are set back a little ways. So we get very little notice about things coming up. There is a lot of objection. For one thing, our trail, which is private trails, and a ditch and a road run right along on the south side. That is going to be a mess. There's no way to keep that up. If they're going to raise the soil, what kind of a ditch are we going to have over there? There's no way you can take horses through those things if they mess up our trails. And I don't see how they can stop from doing that. Anyway, there's a very lot of objections, and you have very few people that were contacted due to the setbacks of our homes. Our arena and so forth are right up close to that area, and it's going to mitigate them terribly. Thank you.
If there's no further public comment in chambers or via Zoom, that's the end of public comment.
Okay. All right. Well, then I'll close public comment. Close public comment, bring it back to the board for questions and discussions. Go ahead.
Kathy Julian, for the record, I would appreciate it if the applicant could address some of these concerns that have been raised by the public.
Absolutely. I'm going to let Janelle speak a little bit to the floodplain. So there's a lot of work
Please
going
speak,
on.
state your name.
Sorry, John Browning, Tectonic Design Group. So the flood zone mapping that you saw on the screen shows the actual mapping of where the water's going. So our site is technically been removed from the flood zone, but it was somewhat erroneous. We coordinated with the project that was going on to the north with our flood models, and when they recorded their LOMAR, even though our work hasn't been done yet, it removed our floodplain, but it's for the work that we're proposing. So the flood still hits our site. We still want to follow the process of meeting the CLOMAR that we have with FEMA and getting that work done to have that done correctly. So that's that question. As far as the bridle path concerns, the water we're directing from the site is being directed away from bridle path. We're actually cutting the site down on the side adjacent to the residence you see just south of the screen. The fill's kind of on the other end. This because it all slopes down. You can see the pink is the current flood, what happens before we do this. The blue is the flood mapping that was recorded a little bit early, but the actual flood still hits our property. And so the CLOMAR work process that we went through with FEMA was before that flood mapping happened. That was mapping for the north, and it included some of the work that was being proposed that it's just a little cart before the horse on that flood map changing before this work is done. So as far as the trail system and everything else, we have a 50-foot setback required in the Village Green Handbook on the south side. We're not touching any of the grades along there. We actually have a trail requirement that has to go in there. That'll all be on our plans when we get around to construction plans. At this point, we're just trying to get the earthwork done to meet the FEMA requirements so we can go record the LOMAR and have it actually, bulletproof and correctly done.
Kathy Julian, for the record, this may be something more for the county. When they go to get there, they're saying they're going to be set back something like 50 feet from the trails?
Without any, there's no impact there. Our building's actually 125 feet from the property line, but we're not grading within that trail buffer at all.
That 50 feet?
Yeah.
Okay. And that would be mandated, or that would be executed through the building permits? And is there any, when you go for the building permit, that is not a condition here in this
Right,
proposal, right?
We're not even submitted for the grading permit yet. And we're trying to do the grading permit first so we can do the FEMA stuff. It'll be looked at by the county at the grading permit level, and when we come in with building plans, it'll be looked at that level as well.
Okay, and will there be any opportunity for public comment at that juncture?
Those are all by right. We are working with the immediate residents. We've got some meetings, we've had conversations with them. We are going to go walk the site with them to look at potential buffering, extra landscaping, things they may or may not want to help improve that interaction between their house and the property. But everything else is by code with the Village Green Handbook. Yeah.
Trevor Lloyd, through the chair, thank you for the question, Ms. Julian. There's a couple things here. What we're looking at today is an entitlement for a special use permit. So we don't have a grading permit at this time submitted. But when that comes in, it will, assuming this gets approved today, the grading permit will have to be in substantial conformance with the plans approved by the Board of Adjustment. And so we don't condition that. It's a requirement of per code that it has to be in that substantial conformance.
And apologies if I missed the detail in here. And in here, in the plans incorporated here, the grading is outside of a 50-foot width from the path that the neighbors are concerned with. Is that correct?
I'm going to have to look at the applicant because I don't know. I'm not looking at the dimensions. That looks about right based on what I'm looking at.
We're comfortable.
Yeah, you got to, they're recording everything.
Yeah, Janelle Thomas, Senior Licensed Engineer for the record. Yes, our understanding of the proposed grading is that it is set back from that south property line, and that the grades that are shown on their preliminary grading plan are the ones that we are contemplating with this application.
And Kathy, Julian, for the record, you're suggesting that that is 50 feet setback from the...
Yes.
Okay. And then my only query would be, is that satisfactory for the residents, the neighbors? Is that something that has been discussed with them as being satisfactory, that 50-foot setback? Because I think they were concerned they would be riding in a ditch or something like that.
Well, I believe that they are following code, but I can let the applicant respond regarding his conversations.
We've had conversations with multiple entities in the neighborhood. The one we're actively working with is just to the south of, you can see it just on the screen here, that house that's the southeast corner. We're working with them. We're going to meet with them on site and walk the site. So to say that they're okay with it, I don't think we've gotten something that says they're okay with it, but we are in active conversations to work through that. The grading that's shown now is what was shown for FEMA purposes, so that we could, get our property to be a safe development. So.
Can you just please state your name again?
I apologize. John Brown of Tectonics Design Group.
Thank you. We can't take questions, I'm sorry. I get that, but, yeah. Do you have any other questions?
For the, excuse me, for the record, Don Christensen. Being that I'm appointed to this board as a resident of the Commission District, District 4, I live about a mile north of this project, so I'm very familiar with it, the history of it, and what has been attempted to develop it. To address my colleagues, I have a very strong aversion to this whole project. We're going to raise the grade, average grade 9 feet, and I have lost confidence in FEMA, and whether this is a CLOMAR or ROMAR or whatever. I see some defects in one of the reports here on Exhibit E. It's a minor thing on page 57. They call us Wayne County, Washoe County. Minor thing. I don't think the homework's been done. I really don't. I feel very strongly when you take a look at this project, a commercial project eventually, and we might as well call it what it is. It's going to be warehousing. And we're not looking at that today. We're looking at way before preliminary work. But it's surrounded on 3 sides by residences, fairly new subdivisions. And one of the flood illustrations there, it does show on the north side of the project, it currently exists as a minor flood situation. And will it be mitigated? I've lost confidence in the engineering studies that have been done, and certainly have problems with FEMA. And my recommendation is, unless one of my colleagues wants to call me on it, saying, no, it's going to work. I don't think it's going to work, and I really am troubled that it's within a stone's throw of these nice houses that have gone in the last, on the north side, have gone in the last 2 years. Not going to affect me, I'm a mile away, but I think there's better use of this project, the land. I can sympathize with Mr. Herman. I believe it was you. No, it was the other Dan. It's not so much a detention basin. In the engineering reports, it's been called more or less a repository for silt. It's a silt collection, and it has not been cleaned out. And I think this is a first steps in a real problem, and we need to nip it now. And maybe make the project smaller footprint. I don't know. I'm not the engineer, but I see putting this major project, and that's a lot of acreage, and a lot of earth to be moved, imported, if you will. I don't think it's going to be. I'm going to rephrase that, because one of the conditions that we consider here is it detrimental, and I think this site is a detrimental if we proceed with it the way it's been engineered, and so I do not support it. And I particularly call attention. I always defer to Miss Julie on the stuff that happens at Lake Tahoe. She lives up there, very sharp on that. And she's not looked at this like I have. I live in this thing. I had to cross it twice today. And I sweat it every time I see a major storm. Because you look back 15 years ago, and it totally destroyed the watershed on Calle de la Plata. And it took months to rehabilitate that. It was impassable. And we're not, when you're dealing with water, in particular here in Washoe County, the volume that comes down Griffith Canyon can be just excessive. And I don't think the work that has been done is, well, it's never 100% foolproof. And I don't think we're improving the situation by allowing this excavation and fill.
Okay. Thank you. Does anybody else have any comments or questions?
I have Kathy Julian. For the record, I would agree with my colleague that I can't support this, but for the reason being, first, I think there are concerns of residences in the area that have not been adequately addressed here. And secondly, I mean, as per, on page 3, it says that we're supposed to be, to provide a procedure whereby uses can be permitted so as to mitigate or eliminate possible impacts, adverse impacts. And I'm just not clear that we've seen enough, as you point out, homework done to clarify on that we truly are mitigating adverse impacts. And I'm also curious as to why, if why so much is being done in terms of the grading and the impact of that on traffic and on the number of trucks coming in and out. That may be that may be something that's just inherent in development, and that's fine. But it should be clarified, mentioned, explained, and possibly mitigated in the report. So, and that really wasn't discussed at all, and I see that as problematic when concerns to the community are not really elaborated in the report and discussed and dealt with. And although I think the report says you're responding, the applicant is responding to the neighbors and things like that, but I saw no real concrete evidence of that. So I'm afraid I can't support this at this time.
Okay. Peter, did you have some comments?
Peter Gashon, for the record. Can I still ask questions?
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
Trevor, the property zoned industrial, how long has it been zoned industrial?
Through the chair, Trevor Lloyd, for the record. It was originally rezoned to industrial back in, I think, mid-2005, 2006, right around that time range. So it's been there for about 20 years.
So I'll note for my colleagues, and I understand everything they're saying, all of the land from Pyramid Highway through this property and the one adjacent to it is all zoned industrial. And it has been, theoretically, for 20 years. So to suggest that a particular use that may be contemplated by the results of this grading is just inappropriate, I don't agree, because it is zoned for those uses. I would like to address one of the public commenters' questions, if you could. I mean, I know that what we're looking at, but do the future grading plans contemplate improvements to the county land, the pond area?
Janelle Thomas, for the record, through the chair. The current project does not include any off-site improvements at this point. This is solely the property that is trying to obtain the entitlement at this point. And so there are no off-site improvements that are required or recommended to be improved off of this property.
I mean, would the applicant, is it likely in the process of preparing your grading plans that off-site improvements would be required to make it work?
No.
No? No. Okay. Go ahead.
I just want to clarify, Kathy Julian, for the record, that I do not, it is not my position that this is not an appropriate use for warehousing or siting of commercial activity. I fully agree, it's industrial, it can be developed as industrial. My concern is the plans involved in that and whether they have been developed in a way that satisfactorily mitigate adverse impacts from that development. So that's my point. I have no dispute with industrial use here. Thank you.
Just to go ahead. Conclude, I think for me, Peter Gashon, for the record, I don't know that any of us on this board have the technical expertise to refute anything that staff or FEMA says. And so I think that having gone through a CLOMR, I'm sure they've been at this for a couple years, probably. So I would tend to think that the homework has been done. And I just don't want to be in a cynical position of just saying, I don't trust FEMA, so I can't move forward with this. So, for me personally, it's zoned. I trust staff. They've been at this for a couple years, and I'm sure that if the next step, of course, is the grading permit, and so there will be another round of scrutiny with staff. This is just an entitlement on the SUP, so I can support it.
Okay. Leo, do you have anything?
Nothing that isn't, unfortunately, nothing that isn't opinion, so.
Okay. All right. Well, we've discussed it, we've had public comment, so I'll bring it back to the board for somebody. Would somebody like to make a motion?
Peter Gishon for the record. I move that after giving reasoned consideration to the information contained in the staff report and information received during the public hearing, the Washoe County Board of Adjustment approve with conditions special use permit case number WSUP 25-0007 for Avenue 55 LLC with the conditions included as Exhibit A to this matter, having made all 5 findings in accordance with Washoe County Code Section 110.810.30.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second? I'll second it. So we have a motion and a second. Do we have any final discussion? Okay. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, say nay.
Nay.
We have 3 nays, 2 opposed. Motion fails. Mr. Lloyd, can you please read the appeal procedure?
All right. Most decisions rendered by the Board of Adjustment are appealable to the Board of County Commissioners. If you disagree with the decision of the Board of Adjustment and qualify as an aggrieved person or party, you may appeal in writing within 10 calendar days from the date that the decision being appealed is reduced to writing, filed with the Secretary of the Board of Adjustment, and mailed to the original applicant in the proceeding being appealed in accordance with Washoe County Code. Please call the planning staff immediately at 775-328-3610 for information on the appeal procedure and the application fee.
Wonderful, thank you. All right, that moves us on to item number 8E, appeal of an administrative hearing order on code enforcement case number WVIO PLA 24-0059 for Jones. Mr. Lloyd, since you're back, can you please announce it?
Will do. Yeah, for possible action, hearing, and discussion to affirm, modify, reverse, or remand an administrative hearing officer's hearing order dismissing a code enforcement violation of Washoe County Code Section 110.306.35 sub B, outdoor storage of RVs and other items on a vacant parcel without the required existing principal use. Representing Washoe County in this matter is Planning Manager Chad Giesinger.
Chad, floor is yours. Welcome back.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, Board of Adjustment members. Chad Giesinger, Planning Manager for the Code Enforcement Program. For the record, this is an appeal, an administrative hearing order that dismissed a code enforcement case, a violation that code enforcement brought on this property. So just by way of background, I know we had a similar case last month, and this case was actually continued, was on that agenda and was actually continued to this month. Unfortunately, we weren't able to work out a compliance plan, so the county has elected to move forward with the appeal today. Essentially the way this works is civil penalty notices can be issued for violations. Those notices contain appeal rights. They can be appealed to what's called the Administrative Hearing Office. That's a third party, it's not really a court, it's a third party adjudicator that's staffed by pro bono lawyers or judges that volunteer to do that. They issue what's called an administrative hearing order. If either side is aggrieved by that decision, they can appeal it to the Board of Adjustment per the Development Code, and that's why we're before you today. And any decision that comes out of this hearing ultimately could be a petition to judicial review. So for some background on the property we're discussing today, it's located out in Red Rock at 120 Mule Tail Circle. It is a 10-acre property zoned low-density rural. That zoning allows, typically the main use would be a dwelling, allows 1 dwelling per 10 acres. There currently is not a house on the property, so it is considered vacant because there wasn't the use at the time that this case was opened. There are some improvements on this property. There's a temporary power drop, and it appears a well has been drilled and is operational. Other than that, no other utilities currently exist. There's no septic system, for example. So here's a graphic of the location. You see it's pretty far out there in the North Valleys off of Red Rock Road. This case began with an anonymous complaint received almost a year ago exactly, exactly a year ago, April 2nd, 2024. The complaint alleged there was RV living occurring without a use on the property. Code enforcement investigated the complaint, as we do with all complaints, and did verify that there were RVs, livestock, and various other items on the property without a principal use. And this is the code citation for the violation of storage on a vacant parcel not allowed pursuant to the code site there. So here was the condition of the property upon our initial investigation. You can see the items I just described. A couple of RVs, a couple of car containers. Car containers actually aren't compliant regarding advertising and painting standards. That's a separate issue. Various vehicles and so forth in a shed. So the case was open, and I did want to point out that at the same time, concurrently, the Environmental Health Services had also received a complaint alleging RV living and concerns over where the sewage was going. And so EHS also opened a case, and I do have Mr. David Kelly here from Environmental Health Services should you have any questions about that side of things, but I'm going to primarily focus on code enforcement's side of things. So when we initially made contact with the owners, we provided some initial compliance options, which included establishing a principal use or getting a building permit for a single-family dwelling, because if they did that, then they could have some of those items there, like one RV. As we discussed in the case last month, if you have an active building permit, you are allowed to temporarily live in an RV and so forth. So the primary compliance option we were discussing at that point in time was a building permit for a single-family dwelling because the respondent had indicated they did have plans to build a house. We didn't know if that meant they actually had plans drawn up or if they just planned someday to build a house. So in late April, we were informed by the owner that house designs had been finished and were pending final engineering plans. In response to that information, we did issue an extension of time, but stipulated no other items should be brought onto the property. Ultimately, a second extension of time was granted in early June. And on June 25th, we received an email. The plans had still not been submitted, but it was expected by the following week. So we were anticipating some movement in that area in a relatively short amount of time. However, after that June 25th email, we did not receive any further correspondence from the respondent. While we were working that side of things, Environmental Health System was also communicating with the owner, according to the notes in Acela, and informed the owner of the septic permitting requirements, the need for inspections, and the requirement, and this is a key here, the requirement to incorporate the septic permitting and testing into a building permit application, which has not yet occurred. EHS also then requested a timeline for completing a test stress and inspections, and the owner responded they'd attempt to have that done also within a short amount of time. So as part of those communications, the owner did ask if they could pump the RV tank, indicating that they were essentially using it and living in it. And they were told that if they provided receipts and made immediate progress towards getting the building permit application approved and a septic system installed, that they could do that temporarily. However, after that exchange, again, no further communication from the respondent. Another month went by, so code enforcement conducted a follow-up compliance inspection in August, since we still had not seen any building permit plans submitted. But the inspection found no progress. Basically, the property was in the same condition. So due to a lack of communication and no demonstrated improvements towards compliance, we did issue a penalty notice. Unbeknownst to code enforcement staff, the owner had been actually contacting planning during this time to discuss how to obtain a principal use on the property. And apparently they went down an angle to ask if they could establish an agricultural use on the property as a principal use, animal production, and planning informed them that is possible. And since the owner already had brought livestock, ducks, turkeys, pigs, horses onto the property owner, based on this information, appeared to believe that they had established a principal use. So after the property owner received the code enforcement penalty notice, they did appeal that notice and a hearing was scheduled. That hearing ultimately got continued. I just wanted to include that so you know how the time passed during this period. And once we did have the hearing, the owner and their legal counsel argued that all the items on the property, including the RVs, were actually legally stored because they had established this a principal use by having the turkeys, ducks, pigs, goats, etc. on the property. However, up to this point, code enforcement was not aware that this was something that was being pursued, and we were still waiting on the building permit for a dwelling to be issued. Also at that hearing, legal counsel argued there was no violation because Section 110, 330, 55 agricultural buildings allowed such storage on a vacant parcel without a permissive main residential dwelling. And that's partially true. 110.330.55 does allow things related to an agricultural use, such as buildings, corrals, coops, pens, stables, or other structures, but that doesn't necessarily mean you can have anything on the property, for example, RVs. So, as I mentioned in my bullet point here, while it did appear from site photos that some of the items could fall under that ag definition, for example, a shed to store, agricultural materials like seed or hay or something like that. You could also argue a cargo container could meet that definition, but the RV living and the other RV clearly not related to an agricultural use in staff's opinion. So, here are the site inspections from August 2004. As you can see, it remained largely unchanged. The two RVs there, the Airstream and the other one. Staff attempted to respond in the administrative hearing that an RV is not a structure, so by definition, RVs can't be allowed as an agricultural building under the provisions of 110.330.55. In addition, RVs cannot be used as a legal permanent dwelling or an office space, because that was the other argument, that one of the RVs was being used as an office. And then in addition to those positions, the owner also argued when they appealed the penalty notice that RVs are allowed even without a principal use, and later admitted they were residing in one of those, and they claimed the other RV was being used as shelter for livestock, basically a chicken coop, which I'll get into more later. So following that testimony, code enforcement did acknowledge that, okay, an agricultural use theoretically has been established here. We would be willing to compromise and negotiate over which items could remain as part of that agricultural use and which needed to go. Unfortunately, that compromise proposal was not entertained by the hearing officer or the legal counsel, and instead the hearing officer decided to ask the respondent a series of questions, one of which was what they were using the RV for and if they dwelled in them. The owner responded on the record that one was used as an office and shelter for chickens and the other RV as a dwelling. Following that response from the respondent, the hearing officer did not ask code enforcement to respond to that. They simply issued a decision at that point, which was a little concerning. And the basis of that decision, according to the order that was ultimately issued, was that the RVs were necessary to support the agricultural use, and further that the RVs were actually exempted by the provisions of 110.330.55, which again, staff believes is not correct and does not comply with code. So for those reasons, we felt the order was fundamentally flawed, and we felt compelled to appeal this decision. We don't usually appeal these decisions, but in this instance, we felt compelled to. So again, this is the actual violation that was cited. At the time, remember, we did not realize they were trying to establish an ag use, so basically the corrective action was to remove everything that was stored on the parcel. Outdoor storage is defined as the outside placement of items for more than 72 consecutive hours, and we had documented that. That was happening. So again, they established that use, but there are items still on the property not related to the agricultural use. Okay, I think I've covered that. Yeah, so if they did want to legalize the RVs being present on the site, that would actually constitute a separate use. I wanted to point that out to the board. If the board finds that these are in fact not related to an agricultural use, which is the position of staff, the only other way they could store those RVs there would be through the use of storage of operable vehicles. Fortunately, that's not allowed in the low-density rural residential category. You may hear from legal counsel, well, hey, the penalty notice didn't specify exactly all the items that you wanted to be removed. And that's because at the time, we were considering the property as completely vacant, and so therefore we didn't call out the issues of the additional issues that are currently occurring on the property, which is an unregistered RV, which basically makes it a junk vehicle, the non-compliant cargo containers, which still have add copy on them, which is not allowed under code, things of that nature. So I just wanted to point that out. And then when this case was continued last month, I did have a brief discussion with legal counsel, and during that discussion, basically they were saying, well, what do you want? What do you want for us to gain compliance? We want to put this matter to bed. And I explained, well, at a minimum, the 2 RVs need to be removed because they're not related to an agricultural use. Legal counsel responded, why can't an RV be a chicken coop? And I said, because it's a vehicle. And then he responded and he said, well, where in the code does it say specifically that can't be a chicken coop? And we kind of left it there, but I wanted to address the argument in case it comes up again from the respondent. The code actually does have definitions in Article 902 that does pretty much make this distinction, and here's what it is. So, Section 110, 330, 55 is titled agricultural buildings, right? So then here's the definition of an agricultural building. It's a structure, right, designed to store farm implements and so forth. It shall not be used for human habitation, okay? And the term shall not include dwellings. What's the definition of a structure? Structure does not include a tent, trailer, or a vehicle. So by definition, an RV cannot be an agricultural building, period. And then you see the definition of a recreational vehicle. So regarding public notice, these cases do not require public notice. It's only due process in noticing to the parties involved. And I do want to point out, for those who may not be familiar with these cases, your typical cases where you're making findings, that's not required on this appeal. However, I do have to convince you that the hearing officer did make an unreasonable order, and that's my contention today before you. And if you do agree with staff and you uphold our appeal and overturn the administrative hearing office and basically uphold this violation, we would recommend some kind of compliance plan, a certain amount of time to remove the things not related to an agricultural use. And of course, staff is recommending the Board of Adjustment reverse the decision of the administrative hearing office and order the respondent to remove the RVs, any other items not related to agricultural use of the property within 25 days of the board decision. And here is a possible motion for your consideration. This is also contained in your staff report. And with that, I will open it up to any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you. Does Elizabeth Jones wish to state her side of the case? A representative? Yes.
Good afternoon. My name is Michael Maupin, Esquire. I'm the representative of the Jones family.
Okay.
For reasons that aren't 100% clear to my clients, only Elizabeth Jones was cited as a party to this. Both her and her husband own the property. Both of them are here today if the board does wish to ask any questions. First off, I would like to say that the citation here is fairly clear as to its nature. It is a citation for improper storage without a principal use. The fact that a principal use has been established, has been admitted to have been established, and was determined to have been established by the hearing officer does not seem to factor into code compliance's decision to continue to pursue this matter. This is, at this point in time, undisputed. There's an agricultural purpose that has been established. That has not been objected to by code compliance. That has not been objected to by anybody. So how can you have improper use without a principal use when there is a principal use? So one way or the other, we have got a deficient citation. And this citation, if my client is going to be cited for something, they need to go back to the drawing board and do this again. Now, hypothetically, nothing stops them from doing that, but that is the problem that we're presented with here today. This agricultural use, code enforcement has admitted that this is a use that is established as of right. You don't have to have a business license. You don't have to have a residential building permit. You get to engage in agriculture as a matter of right. And there's no dispute as to that. And the code very specifically does allow for facilities on a property for agricultural use. And the specific wording of this code provision is very important here because it's not specifically addressed in the argument that was just made. agricultural buildings as a main use. Buildings, comma, corrals, comma, coops, comma, pens, comma, stables, or structures used in conjunction with agricultural use. That's the law. That is the specific black letter law that we are interpreting here today. The only definition that was just addressed by code compliance was that of structures. And what constitutes a structure? Well, there is a laundry list of other items here before you even get to the word structure. And none of those other items that are in this black letter law was addressed in any definition that was just put forward. Now, it is mine and my client's contention that there has been a decision made by a hearing officer, a professional lawyer who has served in hearing this matter at the lower level. And a certain amount of deference should be paid to the determination of this hearing officer. As to the facts determined, it should be given almost complete deference. As to the law, we should, of course, defer to the experience of a licensed attorney whose job it is to make this determination at the lower level. Now, this appeal very specifically is because code enforcement feels that the use of trailers is inappropriate for agricultural purposes. However, the hearing officer specifically found otherwise. And there is literally no code section that says a towed, for lack of a better term, vehicle. And it is important to note these are not RVs. These are not self-propelled vehicles. They are trailers. They were towed to this location. They cannot get there of their own accord. There's absolutely nothing that says a towed structure cannot serve as a chicken coop. And there's not one single code section that has been cited that says otherwise. The only code section that was cited in response to this, I would say this is the first time this argument has been made. They did not put it in their appeal documents. They did not argue it at the underlying stage. And I know that this is not a court of appeals, and I'm by trade a litigator, so I typically view disputes like this with through the prism of what happens in court. And if I were to appeal a court action, and I get to the Nevada Court of Appeals, or I get to the Nevada Supreme Court, and they attempt to re-argue law that was not argued at the lower level, or they attempt to re-argue facts that were not argued at the lower level, guess what? You don't get to. It's inappropriate for an appeal. And it should be inappropriate here, because there should be deference granted to the findings of the hearing officer. I do take particular objection to the invoking of the environmental services commentary and any potential commentary of someone from that office. That is not the subject of this appeal. It was not the subject of the citation, and we should be restricted to those documents rather than attempting somehow to magnify the scope of these proceedings after the proceedings have already started. I think that is profoundly inappropriate. I've heard again today that there was a compromise that they wanted to propose that was not entertained. Of course it wasn't entertained because they lost at the lower level. You don't compromise. You don't enter into an offer of compromise when you have prevailed at your hearing. There was no need to compromise because they had already won. So why would an offer of compromise even be on the table at that point in time? Now, yes, I did contact code enforcement to see if there's some way that we can put this matter to bed. Of course. This seems like going a little bit beyond given the nature of the infractions in place. We're talking about, at the end of the day, the only thing that they're making an issue of is 2 trailers. One of which was specifically admitted and testified to during the hearing that it was being used to house and care for livestock. And the other one is being used for purposes of the people who are present on the property at that point in time. This is not their principal residence, and they've never claimed that it is. They have a post office box where they receive mail. They have a house in California. Now, I'm not going to say that they have never stayed in that trailer, but that is not their principal residence. They did and do intend to try to put in place a residential building permit. They've been working as hard as they can on that. Unfortunately, they are subject to the speed at which the engineers that they have retained are choosing to go. We tried to get it in by today in order to see if we can put this matter to bed. Unfortunately, we haven't been able to do so. And I have been authorized to represent to you that if this matter goes on any longer than today, and we're not able to finally get a building permit submitted, and it's not because we haven't retained the necessary experts in order to do just that. There's been a good faith effort to comply with that. If they're not able to do it, they're going to sell the property and move away. And so at the end of the day, this is not something that the board or the county has to worry about in any long-term fashion. Either we get a permit in or the property gets sold. This is not something that's going to linger on through time immemorial. This is a short-term, discrete issue that even if we don't prevail today in this appeal, it's not going to be lasting much longer. But we should prevail in this appeal because we should trust the determinations of the hearing officer in question. They were the ones that got to dig into the details. That's the reason why courts of appeal don't question the factual findings of a lower court, because it is the hearing officer that got to be present at the hearing and ask all the necessary questions of everybody. Take as much time as the hearing officer needed in order to come to that determination, and we shouldn't shortcut that determination on appeal. If you have any questions or if you would like to hear specifically from my clients, I'm happy to do that at this time.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any questions at this time?
I would simply like, not of the applicant, but of the, Mr. Giesinger, if you could put up the definitions and perhaps keep them up there, the definitions of structure, that slide that you had.
Yeah, the slide with the definitions.
Yeah, that would be great. I think that would be helpful.
Yes.
Thank you. And I have no question, I just would like to see it. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to see it a little bit better. Does anybody else have any questions right now? Okay, public comment? Do we have any public comment?
There is no public comment in chambers or via Zoom.
Okay, bring it back to the board. Chad, I got a couple questions for you. So there was a discussion about toilet facilities, pumping and all that. Is there a designated building on there to do that? Let's say they're out taking care of the animals and they need to use the facilities. Is there a Sani hut, for instance, on the property, or where do they take care of that business at?
There's no Sani hut. My assumption is they're using the RV because that's why they asked the EHS if they could pump it.
Okay.
And we were concerned because they never moved. So we were concerned they weren't dumping it. So we were like, well, where are they dumping it? So that's why we were coordinating with EHS, because it is germane and relevant to the overall issue at hand. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then I thought I heard you say that there's a well on the property. Is that
Yes,
is that correct?
that's my understanding. Yeah.
Maybe I misunderstand it, but was the well there before they moved in? Because it's my understanding you can't get a well permit to drill a well unless you have a building permit or something like that. Can you speak on that, or?
I can try, and David, you might be able to address this as well. It's my understanding that you actually can drill a well without, just on its own.
Okay.
Because people drill them for livestock watering sometimes, and also you need to get a well. You can't really do a septic system without the well. Like you have to have the water, the input, so they kind of go hand in hand. So a lot of the times people do drill the well first because they need to know where they're going to have a good water source. It's going to perk correctly, because then when you're siting the septic, the well has to be a certain distance from the septic.
Right.
Right.
Right. And then I heard you say something about they have a test trench dug for septic?
They had started that process.
They had started that.
Do that?
Hello, for the record, my name is David Kelly. I'm supervisor with Environmental Health Services. I think I can probably answer some of these process questions a little better than Chad. So he's absolutely correct. You can install a well on a property prior to any building permit or anything else as long as you have the water rights. You can go ahead and use a licensed driller. That was done in April of 2023. I also can agree with Chad that yes, it's our understanding, my staff's understanding, that they're using the RV and dumping the sewage. It is a concern of NNPH when we have people residing on a property because sometimes the sewage is not properly disposed of. So we did have a complaint opened in May of 2024. We have had a few pump receipts provided to us. We have not observed any improper sewage disposal on the property, though it is clear that they are residing there. We did ask for them to progress towards a building permit. One of the challenges we have on this is the continual monitoring of pumping. It's just that's very labor intensive. In June of 2024, they did pull a test trench and completed that process. That would be the first step that would lead to a design that would then go on to a building permit. We haven't heard anything since then. When I heard that this was coming here, we did once again request pump receipts and received them last month and requested them again just recently, and we have not. The only other, I think, salient point to this that we did is that during those conversations at one point they did indicate they intended to use a composting toilet and utilize the waste from that for either a gray water system or for planting. That's something that's not permitted in Washoe County for a variety of reasons. And I explained that to the property owners and they said, okay, we will continue with our pumping process.
Okay.
So I'm happy to answer any other process or technical questions on this.
So on the septic system, do they have to get a building permit to do a septic system?
Yes, they do. We will not issue a septic system permit without the building that it's going to serve.
Okay, so the test trench, that was outside of?
Yeah, it's the first stage. So whenever you want to put a septic system in the ground, we have to understand what the soils look like, if there's groundwater, which there is in this area, or other limiting factors that would affect the design of the septic system. So it's done outside of the building permit process.
Okay. I'm just kind of concerned that me personally, if we take the RV away, they won't have any place to go to the restroom. That's what I'm kind of looking at, and you can't get a septic system unless you have a building permit, and I don't know what the holdup is, but they're not getting a building permit. So I was just, I got one more question, Chad. If with an agricultural use, can they move land around, like with a tractor type stuff to grade some area? Let's say they wanted to plant something. Do they have to have a permit to do anything like that, or is that allowed with an agricultural?
Yeah, they could do crop production, for example. That would require dirt to be moved as part of that process.
Is there a maximum amount of dirt that they can move for that? Or?
I don't know. I can't recall the exact exemptions in there. Do you, Trevor?
Without a grading permit, I think it's what? 10,
I mean, there are other thresholds, Leo. 10.
Let me see if it's an exemption. I think it might be an exemption.
10,000 square feet so far, but I think row crops and things of that nature are exempted from grading permit. It's just it's surface disturbance and kind of like road grading, like maintaining your road. That's exempted. I think it's one of those exemptions.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. I was just wondering.
Sure.
Okay. Go ahead. Yes.
Yes. Kelly, you mentioned that there was groundwater there. So if you weren't monitoring on a monthly basis with county staff for receipts for dumping for this property, and they were perhaps dumping it on the ground, would that have an adverse impact on groundwater?
Yeah, we would consider that to be any direct disposal of sewage on the ground is a public exposure. We would consider that to be a threat to public health. But with the high groundwater, you have the potential of groundwater contamination. And yep, we would look at that as the potential. There are other peoples with wells. Mm-hmm. Everyone's, I think an excavator that I work with says we all are putting our straw in the same punch bowl. And so we would consider that. We would consider this area to be an elevated risk of that.
Okay, and follow up on that, I suppose, do you have staff, again, county staff that goes out and monitor for people dumping in on their sewage on the ground, or what really, is there any real system on the county's part to monitor for that kind of behavior?
We don't patrol, if that's your question. There's no way we could do that. So we describe ourselves as a complaint-driven organization. We respond when we have a concern.
Right.
This particular complaint, as I've said, we have not seen any improper disposal. We follow up as we have time and resources. It is an ongoing open complaint, and it just depends on how much else we got on our plate.
And I think I might have read, perhaps in this application, are there no trespassing signs on the property that would keep people from investigating?
I have not been out to the property myself. I am relying on my staff reports, so I unfortunately cannot
thank you.
answer that.
Mr. Chair, I do have an answer for you.
Okay.
Yeah, per section 110-438-20 exempted work, subsection I, it says surface grading which does not alter the contour of the land for crop production use type is exempted from a grading permit.
Okay, wonderful, great, thank you. And we don't...
Leo Horishny, Chad, I have a question for you. So we did go out and look at the property, and I'm curious if you can visually, of the three properties that are on Muletail Court, this is the least kept up, but at the same time, it didn't look out of character than the other two. Like, it appeared that there was one property that only had a container. I didn't know until now the requirements for the containers not having any decoration on them or anything like that. So vaguely, I can think I remember that both the other properties across the street, one had a container, one had at least, there was a container, and there was also an RV and some vehicles next to it. Can you, I'm not trying to defend one from the other, I'm just curious why.
Yeah, sure. So we do have open cases, actually, on other properties.
Oh, out there?
Yes.
Okay.
And that's one of the concerns that code enforcement has, is that if this hearing order stands, it will give the impression to all the other property owners, I can just bring my RV out here.
I gotcha.
Don't need to build a house. Yeah.
So we're talking about, so it sounds like we're talking about a canary in a coal mine situation here.
Yeah, but the thing is even if we see that when we're out on a complaint, we don't open up another violation on a different property.
Understood.
Yeah, unless we get a complaint on that property.
Sure.
But we have gotten complaints, so we do have open cases. Yeah.
Peter Gishon, Chad, just a quick question. Is there a specific standard of agricultural use to establish it as a principal use? Commercial production, total volume of X being produced? I mean, or can you just bring a duck and you're set?
Yeah. Unfortunately, this has been a topic of much discussion amongst the planners over the years, and we've had different perspectives on it. One perspective is, hey, why can't I have agriculture like, say, my own cattle? You know, I just want to set a cow loose and let it graze, and then I'm going to butcher it, and it's just going to be for my personal use. Is that an ag use per se under the code? And the code has some confusing language in it where it sort of makes a distinction between ag uses that might be accessory or standalone that are just for personal use versus a commercial agricultural operation, which would trigger a business license, right? So it's a bit of a gray area. What you're saying is basically what's happening here. You bring in a couple chickens or a duck, and you say, yeah, I got an ag use, and now I can have, you know, tractors and all these other things to support the ag use. But of course, there's a level of scale there, right? You know, like, for example, do you need 2 cargo containers just to have chicken feed for a small flock of chickens? You know, so that's the difficulty with that side of it. Now, obviously, if they're actively engaged in the sale of agricultural products, for sure, it's a commercial operation, and most of the time when people are engaged in agricultural, that is. what you're going to see. And we do have provisions in the code for, say, produce stands and things like that, where you can sell stuff from your property. But there is kind of this little gray hole loop area. I've always taken a position that, yeah, it has to be commercial, but I got overruled by the other planners. I don't know if you want to weigh in on that as well, Trevor. Did I adequately explain that?
I think you explained that very well.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Chad.
Do you have any other questions? So Chad, I just got one more question. So let's say we do overturn this and they still want to come back. If we overturn it, give them 25 days, take everything off. If they take everything off, pay the $100 fine, what's to say they can't just move everything back on and start over again? Is that one of those things that
they certainly could, and then we would have to do enforcement again. Although if you don't obey a hearing order, that does open up other avenues of enforcement.
I'm kind of torn, I'll be honest with you, I'm kind of torn. Okay, if they've got an agricultural use, but they don't have a toilet facility on there, you know, I could go either way, because I want to see, you know, I want to make sure that they're respectful to the neighbors.
Right.
And things along that line, but yet I still want to follow the law and what it says. And it does say on a recreational vehicle, it's a recreational vehicle can be self-propelled, mounted, or towed for a definition.
Correct.
So it does not have to have a motor.
Right.
You cannot have a tent, a trailer, and an agricultural building should not be used for human habitation. So, I mean, I think that's pretty clear.
Right.
Go ahead.
I mean, and that's the conundrum. If you establish a use like this, you basically have to come and go from the property to maintain, because you can't live there.
Right.
I mean, unless you build a house, then, you know, then it's an accessory use.
Right.
Yeah.
Did Kathy Julian, for the record, did the code establish a definition of PIN?
Not that I'm aware of. Yeah, but I would argue an RV is not a pen, if that's the angle.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think at the last one we had of these, it was, one of the options for the gentleman that owned the property was to put 1,000 square foot, 900 and some odd square foot basic shed. Get a building permit, put a shed on it, and there you've got a principal use.
Yeah, well, it was more than a shed. It had a bathroom and a kitchen in it, but yeah,
right.
Not much bigger than a shed.
But basically a shed, yeah. And I would assume that would work for this also, correct?
They could submit any size. They could submit any size of the house they wanted to. We no longer have restrictions in the code.
Yeah. Okay. Tiny home.
A tiny home.
They could. I mean, it would have to meet the building code, but the building code doesn't restrict the size either.
Right. Okay. Okay.
I mean, there has to be certain dimensions for like a.
Obviously, they got to pass the,
Yeah.
And last time I checked on getting a building permit, it was a couple $1,000s. I don't know what it is now. But.
Leo Harishny for the record. Mr. Chairman, so we went out there and looked at the property. Possibly there were horses there. I don't think so. I definitely did not see any sign of any other small animals. No poultry, no pork, no anything. So in the picture of all the material that you saw there, that it was not possible to discern that there was an agricultural use going on.
Okay.
From what Chad's saying is, we got a situation here where someone has a duck in their lap and they're saying they have an agricultural use, at least as what it appears to us when we went out there and looked at. And again, to bring up also, right across the street is a slightly more kept up property, a newer trailer, a storage container, a couple of dirt bikes, a couple of cars, all looked taken care of and operational and whatever, and it was clean. There were a couple of large dogs there. People were maintaining across the street, but it was really not any different other than the appearance of what we're looking at here today.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we don't know because we're not talking about that one if they had a
Correct.
building permit or not, so.
Right.
I got you. Okay. Go ahead, Peter.
Yeah, Peter Kashan. Just one more quick question. So what it says, the appeal process is the appellant has the right to appeal the written order by filing a petition for judicial review. Does that stay the enforcement action? Do they still have to remove the RV? Do they still have to pay the fine? Or does the filing of the appeal stay all of that?
They would have to move for a stay in district court.
So just the mere filing of the appeal does not stay?
It does not.
Okay. Do we have any other discussion? Would you like, yes, sir, go ahead, come on up and, come on up to the mic, state your name. I'll let you do a couple minutes to rebuttal here.
Again, Michael Maupin, an attorney for the Jones family. First off, the question of dumping. There is literally no evidence that any dumping has occurred. Literally none. They've asked for receipts, they've been given receipts. They've mentioned today that they recently asked for receipts and haven't gotten them yet. Do you know when they asked for those receipts? Today. How will they possibly get them? By the hearing. It is highly inappropriate to inject such speculation into this appeal proceeding. And I would respectfully submit that that's exactly why that there is deference to the decisions of a hearing officer. That is the role of the hearing officer, fact finding. And what we have today, I've heard a lot of speculation. I've heard a lot of speculation about whether or not there could possibly be dumping. There has not been dumping. There has been no finding by anyone that any sewage of any kind has been dumped. It is nothing more than speculation that cannot serve as evidence. We've heard some speculation about the potential for earth moving. There has been no testimony, no evidence of any kind that any earth has or hasn't been moved. That was not something that was brought up at the lower level, and it's inappropriate for it to be brought up before this body today. This is an appeal. It's an appeal of the decisions and findings of fact from the lower level. It is inappropriate to try to bring in completely speculative, asserted facts at this stage. And what's more, as far as the agricultural use, this is not a canary in the coal mine situation. Because my clients have spent thousands of dollars on livestock. Respectfully, Mr. Horshey, I don't know what vantage point that you used to look at the property. However, there are 3 horses, 3 ducks, 4 turkeys, and 9 chickens present on this property. So if the assertion is being made that anybody who spends thousands of dollars on livestock can take advantage of this exemption, well, yes. If you spend thousands of dollars on livestock and feed and care for that livestock on your property, you have an agricultural use. There is no evidence that has been put forth by code enforcement that there isn't agricultural activity being done on this property. This is not false. This is not made up. This is not somebody bringing in a duck and say, hey, look, I'm a farmer. No. They have large animals present on the property. I'm sorry if you weren't able to observe that when you visited, and bravo for going to visit. Thank you. But this is a 10-acre property. You're not going to be able to see everything from the road. If you would like my clients to come up here and provide official testimony on the record as far as how many animals that they have, I'm happy to have them do that, and that's your evidence, and there's no contradictory evidence. And that's important. You would have to take my client's word as fact because you don't have any evidence to contradict it. So at the end of the day, there was a citation that was issued. That citation was overturned by the hearing officer. This proceeding today is nothing more and nothing less than determining the validity of the hearing officer's decision. Anything else? If they want to go back and cite my clients for something else, that's what they're going to have to do, because they didn't cite it for them this time around. And magnifying the proceedings after the proceedings have already occurred is an inappropriate use of code enforcement's time. Thank you.
Thank you. Just for clarification, nobody was implying that somebody was dumping sewage. I did that. I just wanted to know about the trench. I wanted to find out if there was a permit needed to put a septic system in. As far as the land moving, that was, for my knowledge, to know if there was a small farm on there, plants, corn, whatever it may be. That was the reason for that question. Nobody was implying anything like that. And so I'm sorry if there was a misunderstanding. That was not the intention. It was for my knowledge, so that I can make the right decision on this. That's why I was asking those questions. It was not implying anything. And I do understand why we're here, to either uphold, affirm, or modify the decision of the hearing officer. I do understand that.
Chair, if I may weigh in on one point. Although this board is acting in an appellate capacity, it is not the equivalent of an appellate court. It's specific in code, specifically 110.912.10 subsection J6, that new argument and evidence are able to be introduced at this level.
Oh, okay. Great, thank you. All right. Does anybody else have anything? Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
Did you ask for public comment?
I did ask for public comment, didn't I? Yeah. Pretty sure I did. Yeah. Yes, sir.
I just have one thing that Mr. Maupin brings up, that the RV in question is not registered, and that by definition it's not a vehicle. Well, the vehicle code, which I was not prepared with today, but it clearly states anything that is drawn upon the highway, and certainly this RV is designed not as a chicken coop. It's designed as to be drawn upon the highway. So it's a vehicle, and it's a non-compliance. I just want to make that absolutely clear, that what we're talking about here is, it's clear. It's a vehicle that's being used. It could be a dwelling, it could be a chicken coop, but it's still a vehicle. And
Right. That's what it, yeah. That's what I'm reading too.
Yeah. And that's in the vehicle code. That's really the only thing I had a comment on, except that, again, both sides have gone to extreme lengths to promote their position, and I take a bit of offense to suggesting that we don't have the right to reverse the hearing officer. It's not our job to interpret the law like that. It just says, based on the facts, are you going to affirm it or reverse it? And I think that needs to be said, that this board has limited power, and certainly if we vote to reverse the hearing officer, it's appropriate that we do and can. And it's also appropriate they can take it to the next level, take it to the commission.
Okay. Would you like to make a motion?
I would like to make a motion. For the record, Don Christensen, having
Page 10.
found it. I move that after giving reasoned consideration to the information contained in the staff report and information received during the public hearing, the Washoe County Board of Adjustment reversed the decision of the administrative hearing officer, including 1, finding that Ms. Jones is in violation of Washoe County Code Section 110.306.35B. 2, reversing the hearing officer's dismissal of the violation on the basis that the use of an RV as an office and other shelter for chickens and an additional RV as a dwelling is allowed by code. 3, upholding the $100 penalty fine issued by code enforcement. 4, ordering the removal of the stored RVs and any other items not related to an agricultural use of the property within 25 days. And 5, authorizing the chair of the Board of Adjustment to prepare a written order of the decision and file it with the Secretary of the Board of Adjustment, a copy of which shall be served to Ms. Jones.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Leo Harishny for the record, second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All right. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. All right. Motion is reversed. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I can read the
Yes, please read the
order.
appeal
Yeah.
procedure.
All right, a written order by the of the Board of Adjustment's decision shall be prepared, executed by the Board of Adjustment Chair, and filed with the Secretary of the Board of Adjustment, and a copy of the order shall be served on the appellant. The appellant has the right to appeal the written order by filing a petition for judicial review in the Second Judicial District Court for the State of Nevada within 25 days from the date the order is mailed to the appellant per Washoe County Code Section 110-910-15 sub I-6. When a petition for judicial review is filed, the court rules shall govern the proceeding. This judicial review is in lieu of an appeal to the Board of County Commissioners as authorized in NRS 278-310-3B.
Wonderful, thank you. This time I'd like to take a 10-minute break. It's 3:31. We'll come back in 10 minutes. Thank you.
any interest, but
Yeah,
yeah, go
no.
ahead. But no, we're at least, we'll do that.
Recording in progress. Recording in progress.
Recording in progress.
There we go. All right, let's call the Board of Adjustments meetings back to order. It's 3:41. Next case is special use permit case number WSUP 25-0005 for American Flat. Mr. Lloyd, you want to announce that?
Yes, for hearing, discussion and possible action to approve a special use permit for a utility services use on a project area encompassing 479.76 acres. The project will include construction of wells used to inject water underground, extraction wells used to pump and access groundwater, and monitoring wells used to observe changes in groundwater levels, water quality, and flow conditions. The wells will be supported by associated pump stations, a finished polished water facility, and 2 storage tanks, 1 irrigation storage tank, and pipelines to support the advanced purified water facility at Lemon and Military Road. Overall, the project will contribute to the creation of a groundwater bank of up to 11,000 acre feet to develop drought-proof water supplies for TM Truckee Meadows Water Authority service area. The request also includes exceptions for a civic use required by Article 412 landscaping. Now, representing Washoe County in this matter is Planner Tim Evans.
All right, Tim, floor is yours.
Thank you. Tim Evans, planner. So as mentioned, the case before you today is special use permit case number WSUP 25-005 for American Flat. So the subject parcels are located at 0 Red Rock Road and 1215 American Flat Road. And the subject parcels are 23.327 acres and 456.447 acres. The parcels to the north of the subject property, north, east, and west, are developed with single-family dwellings and are vacant as well. And those vacant parcels are all residential, as are the ones that are developed with the single-family dwellings. And to the south is the Reno-Stead Airport. The subject property is located within the North Valley's planning area, and the property is, both subject parcels, are zoned general rural. So the request before you is a special use permit for utility services use type, and it is required pursuant to Washoe County Code Section 110.302.05.2. And here is the site plan that was submitted with the special use permit application. It is somewhat difficult to see on the future slides that I'm going to be showing you. They're zoomed in views, small scale site plans. But this is the overall. In the lines there, you can see they're somewhat like purplish and blue as well, or pinkish, I mean. That's where the lines will be running to the extraction wells and things like that. And I'll get into that a little bit more. So here is a zoomed in view of the actual extraction wells on the left side. is the irrigation storage. That'll be towards the center of the screen there. And to the farther left is the water polishing facility. And to the right, that far right on that picture on the left side, is the western extraction well and pump station. And so on the far right side of the screen, it shows the eastern extraction well and pump station, and to the north on that right side of the screen, it shows the R1 injection well. And so on the left side of the screen there, this is a zoomed in view of the R3 injection well and back pulse pump station. And on the right side of the screen, or that right-hand picture, is the R2 injection well and back pulse pump station. So to kind of boil everything down as to what this actual project is all about. So this whole project is for a groundwater bank of 11,000 acre feet. So it's just going to be for the storage of water underground. And there's going to be the installation of extraction wells and wells to inject the water into the aquifer down below, into the ground. And so this project itself is just a chunk or a piece of a larger project called the Advanced Purified Water Facility at Lemon and Military Road. And the purpose of this facility is to have additional water supplies and using potable reuse / groundwater recharge water. And so the APWF, or the Advanced Purified Water Facility, is a project that will diversify the region's water supply and produce 2 million gallons per year of purified water. So that 11,000 acre feet of groundwater storage will contribute to that 2 million gallons per day that is able to be provided to various properties and things like that throughout the area. And so the proposed project for the construction of the wells, the installation of the wells, the monitoring wells, extraction wells, and injection wells will be completed in one phase in the fall of 2026. And so the picture on the screen right now is to show you the location of the subject site where all these wells are going and where the Advanced Purified Water Facility is actually located. So the water that is going to be stored at the subject site will be provided to the APWF, that facility, down to the south, shown on that picture there. And so, as part of this project, there are multiple buildings that are proposed. The tallest one is 16 feet 6 inches, and all of the buildings themselves comply with code requirements. The required setbacks for the subject property is 30 feet from the front and rear, and 50 feet from the sides. All proposed structures meet the setbacks. And a description of the proposed lighting was provided with the special use permit application. And the proposed lighting is just going to be attached to those structures that were mentioned. And the structures that are proposed for this project is just for like the extraction wells and things like that. And it'll just be lighting on the outside to serve as, to have the availability of being able to see at night or whatnot when approaching those structures. And there's a condition of approval in Exhibit A that addresses requiring that all the lighting is downshielded and not spilling over onto adjacent properties as well. And so as far as noise go, there's no proposed long-term impacts due to noise, due to the nature of the facility just being for wells. And so, but there is a condition of approval that is proposed to address construction noise. So it would be temporary, as far as the construction of the wells and the structures and things like that. So there is a condition of approval proposed for that. And the applicant has requested that the landscaping requirements be waived, and staff is supportive of that due to the nature of the project and the facility. And so, which brings me to my last point, a condition of approval, specifically condition of approval 1G, in Exhibit A sets forth a parking condition requiring a minimum of 15 parking spaces. So after the actual publishing of the staff report, staff had additional discussions with the applicant in relation to this project, And the parking spaces that were mentioned in the special use permit application were for the advanced purified water facility that is farther south. It's not actually for the extraction well area and injection well area. So having that condition is unnecessary, and staff is recommending that that condition be removed. So the project was sent out to multiple agencies for review. A total of 26 agencies were provided the project information. And 4 agencies, which is Water Rights, Engineering, Environmental Health, and the Truckee Meadows Fire Protection District, provided conditions as a result of the project information, which are included in Exhibit A of the staff report. So proper noticing occurred for the project, and a total of 35 parcels were noticed, and no public comments were received as a result of the noticing. And staff is able to make all 5 required findings as detailed in the staff report. And staff recommends the Board of Adjustment approve special use permit case number WSUP 25-0005 and provides the amended motion on the screen, as well as I believe the amended motion language was also provided by admin staff. And so I am available for any questions, and the applicant has a presentation as well.
Okay. Can we hear the applicant's presentation, please?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the board. My name is Joe Coudrier. I am here on behalf of the project. As you know, this is a joint partnership between the City of Reno and the Truckee Meadows Water Authority. So I just want to point out, I have other folks with our agency, see if any other questions arise. We've got Angel LaCroix, who is the project manager with the Water Authority, and the Dave Deagle, engineering manager with the Water Authority, and then Dustin Waters, he's our assistant director for the Utility Services Department. So any other questions, they'll be available as well. But yeah, thanks for the chance to give a quick presentation on behalf of the applicant. Next slide, please. Or do I have a clicker? Yeah, there it is. There it is. Okay. Here's just some of the facts about the project. I did want to mention that this is part of a larger project. We're going to be focusing on the part that's in unincorporated Washoe County, as Tim explained moments ago. So this is just a quick overview to sort of separate the project so it's clear. And the 2 callouts there shown by the blue boxes, the one on the north side is the area in unincorporated Washoe County that we're going to be talking about right now with the special use permit application. The one on the south, the kind of the square blue box, that's where the treatment facility is located, and there's a pipeline between the 2 connecting those. But that's just to orient folks. So just at a very high level, so this project is, and it's an advanced purified water facility. It's going to be Nevada's first category A+ large-scale project, so we're super excited about the project. It's been in the making for literally over 20 years. There was site investigations that occurred out at the American Flat site, 2004-ish timeframe, and then there's been a piloting work and site investigation work. There's been subsurface exploration. There's been a lot of work done on this project, leading up to the phase that we're in now, which is a design phase. So when complete, this project will create 2 million gallons per day of advanced purified water. As I mentioned, it's a collaboration between the City of Reno and Tonwa, and it will create a new drought-proof water supply. So what this project will do is it will take effluent from the Reno-Stead Water Reclamation Facility, which is already used for landscaping, golf courses, sports complex. So it's a very high-quality effluent, and through a process that's under design now, once constructed in a new facility adjacent to the water reclamation facility that the Water Authority will operate, we'll take this water from the water reclamation facility that's already been treated and is recycled water, and we'll treat it to what's considered a category A+. Recycled water, it's potable water, and I say basically because the last step is it needs to go into the aquifer. It's part of the whole per state regulation, there needs to be an environmental buffer, but that is drinking water. This project is creating drinking water, and it will bank it in the aquifer and then later extract it for multiple uses, including potable uses. So it creates a drought-proof water supply. It also reduces the amount of effluent that's going to Swan Lake. That's not an issue during dry years, but during wet years, we've had a lot of wet years in recent history. Anything additional above the stormwater that goes in there can cause an impact, so the city also is interested in reducing that impact. This project was approved by the Reno Planning Commission already, and right now it's slated to begin construction, on-the-ground construction, the spring of 2026, and wrapping up construction, and then there's additional commissioning things that happen, but fall of 2028. This slide is really just intended to give a look or the feel for the site as agriculture and nature. Those are center pivots. You can see some residential structures in the background. It just kind of gives you a feel for the scale and the color tones and palette. And then this is zoomed in a little bit more. So here, really, I just wanted to point out the scale of the overall site and then of the improvements. So if you look at numbers 3 and 5, those are where injection wells are planned. There will be a well house with an injection well with a well house. And then if you look at 7 and 8, those are where the extraction wells are planned. There will also be a well house along with those extraction wells. If you look in the yellow, there's some, the yellow is showing the new monitoring wells. There are also some existing monitoring wells on the site. And number 6 is, there is an existing well there, but there'll be some additional outfitting of that well. And then numbers 1, 2, and 9 are showing the locations of tanks, 3 tanks, and an additional polishing facility. It's another building at that location. So overall, through the process of the application that we submitted, we found that this is consistent with the regulations with respect to height, noise, and other potential visual impacts. The exception was noted for the color scheme, and we really felt, based on the input from our planner, that the best way to avoid a visual impact was to match the color palette of the site, which is kind of the sandy tones, instead of putting conifers and dark trees that sort of draw your attention. So that was the reason for the request for the exception on the landscaping, to really create a site that blended more with the natural environment. And we will also, it also will, is found to be in compliance for operational noise and no impact to existing services and facilities. And as required, there was a meeting, and there have been many meetings on this project overall, and we can talk about some of the public outreach in a moment, but there was a community workshop held on January 30th of this year, so the postcard invitations were sent out. There were 24 members of the public. There was other staff there as well, but 24 attendees from the public. And if you kind of see in the picture on the outside, we set up stations with different discipline focuses, so citizens could go and ask questions if they have questions about wells, wondering about the treatment or about the water, about the American Flat Farm or things like that. We answered those questions. We presented detailed renderings for the residents out there so they could get a feel for what that would look like once constructed. And then there was one property owner that asked for some specific simulations that weren't presented initially because they had just purchased the property, and those were also provided. There were some questions about orientation of the building that were answered just by going through some of the details. There are literally dozens and dozens, even hundreds of engagements from, well, overall with the project. Specific to this community workshop, we got 3 calls and 3 emails that we received following the community workshop. For the project overall, we've had 35 presentations, 3 tours for local groups. We've had 6 employee education sessions, 2 Smart About Water Day features. We've taken local officials to California to visit some similar indirect potable reuse projects. 3 media interviews, 10 community engagement initiatives, whether email or specific meetings with specific community groups. And we have reached out to the Fred's Mountain HOA, adjacent homeowners, and the Silver Knolls Community Organization as part of this project. Just wanted to point out, there's been a lot of engagement with the public. We've got a lot of we have gotten comments and feedback, and including what I'm showing here. To sort of synthesize what came out of the community meeting were questions dealing with construction and then post-construction. So in terms of construction, it was working hours, which we are addressing through limiting the hours of construction, 7 to 7. Noise mitigation, which will comply with county standards, but even more specifically during construction, will be monitored for compliance, and additional measures need to be taken, like noise curtains around a drill rig, that sort of thing. That's part of the specifications for a job, and we're prepared to do that. There's a dust control plan. There will be a report and issue contact number for the project. One question that came up was on the American Flat Road, which is the road that sort of goes right through the middle of the site. It will be accessible, and it will also be improved with an all-weather access material, which right now it's a dirt road, so there's no specific surface on that other than just the material that's there now. In terms of the post-construction questions, we had some about lighting. So really the answer to that is lighting will be directed down and away from the surrounding residents. This project won't produce any odor. And the fencing for the site will only be limited to the individual buildings like the well houses and the extraction wells and the site with the tanks with the polishing facility, but the whole site will not be fenced. That 480-acre site, plus or minus, will not be fenced. So with that, we agree with all of the conditions of approval, including the amended condition for the parking requirement. Just want to say thank you to staff for being great to work with. And if we have any questions, we will gladly take them. Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you. Do we have any questions at this time?
I have a few. I have a few questions, and I apologize if I'm asking questions that might have been answered at one of these meetings and so forth. I'm kind of curious, and I don't know, this might also be staff. I'm kind of curious in all this report that we have. There's no hydrology. There's pages on acoustic reports, but there's nothing. I don't know. Maybe that's just me and my interest, but I'm just curious that a project talking about adding and maintaining and utilizing an existing aquifer, that there's no description of the boundaries, the perimeters, the depth, et cetera, about the hydrology of the project. I don't know.
Is the question with respect to the hydrogeology in the ground or the surface water hydro?
Sure. I mean, that is the mechanics of what's, the science and the mechanics about what it is that's going on.
So there is a very detailed study dated, I think it's 2018. It's a hydrogeology report. It was issued by Tom Law staff. So what went into that at the time, that was sort of setting the course for this project, because we need that for the project. So before the project went forward, investigations on that site were done. They consisted of, there were a lot of things, just characterization of the site overall, the soil types. There was a well that was drilled, and water was potable water was injected into the well for 4 months. It's something about 450 gallons a minute, just to look at the impacts on the aquifer and to come up with the volumes, and to study the rise in groundwater elevation change due to that. And then also there was a ground penetrating radar study that was done on transects across the whole site to further characterize. There's also different types of soil sampling that were done to look at the geochemical properties of the aquifer. So it was definitely detailed in that report. The outcomes of that were led to the next step of this project, because it was found to be very suitable for this use.
If I may, Mr. Chair, I feel like we may be getting a little bit off topic in terms of the purview of this board.
All right.
The purview of this board is not to study the hydrology of the resulting project. It's simply to determine if it's an appropriate location for the use type and all of the other land use factors associated with that.
Fair enough. So a question I have is, will this be utilized, because you're talking about, this is reclaimed water that can at times be put into Swan Lake. Will this add to any of the, will this project add to any of the capacity or the flood remediation for Swan Lake?
So really, one of the drivers on the city side, and there's a partnership, right, with Tonwa and the city coming together on this project, but our intent is that through this project, it allows for another place for water to go. So
Okay.
instead of just going to Swan Lake and evaporating, which is not the best use of the water for one, but it also during wet years causes a flooding concern on top of the storm water that's already there. So this actually is a mitigation for that.
Okay. Good. I would like to say to staff that I appreciated very much in this presentation, and this was partly why I brought up the hydrology. Not that you don't have a good, that's a fair point, but I have to say that the site renderings of the project was very, very helpful, and I wish that when we had reports for items, this sort of computer rendering was made available more often in the future for whatever reason. It was really helpful to understand and visualize, even though, yes, we did go out and look, and I know a little bit about American Flat Road and been through there, but that was, I'd say something positive about this. I'm curious to what is grown at the site.
Originally was, I think, triticale, is that how you say it? Trical?
Oh, triticale. Okay.
Triticale. There was a buckwheat,
Gotcha.
I think alfalfa, and there were some other types of cover crops. But
Gotcha.
don't quote me too much on that because they've changed a little bit over time.
I understand. So is that Nevada, is that cooperative extension that?
So the city actually put a contract out to get a farmer to farm it.
Okay.
And we actually got the city's providing the water and the pivots, so all the mechanical equipment's out there and the pumps, and the farmer's just farming it. It's a $0 contract, so they're making enough money off the operations with the city providing the infrastructure and the water to make it happen.
Okay. And I did notice, in this, part of the funding for this project includes a $30 million Bureau of Reclamation grant. Is there any concerns about that grant being still there and still available to the project, especially since you're talking about a two-year timeline? Has that been brought up? Has that been discussed, that what happens if we lose that $30 million?
Yeah, there have been a lot of concerns. We feel like we're getting some thumbs up. Is that a fair characterization? Nothing's for certain, but because of the nature of the project and what it is, it's not a fluff project. It really is providing a lot of value. It's a water resource project, so we feel like we're in a good position.
Gotcha. So if, God forbid, and I'm not trying to jinx anything, but so the project would basically be suspended if that happened?
We are looking at some additional funding sources, and I think Dustin's going to come up.
Hi, for the record, Dustin Waters, Assistant Director of Utility Services at City of Reno. So as far as the funding goes, as you're aware, the federal funding is a little in question at the moment. We have received positive indications that it will come through, but we do have alternative means of funding this project if that grant does not come through.
Okay, thank you. I understand that's totally not in necessarily your bailiwick or control, but I just saw that significant amount, and given what's going on, I was like, what happens? Okay, thank you. And I guess my final question that I had was, if this is the first site that this project has been done in Nevada, where else or what other places has this been done, this groundwater banking?
So Tonwa actually engages on groundwater banking in the Truckee Meadows currently. I think something 6,000 acre feet a year, 4,000, something that, so they've got decades of experience on the Mount Rose family.
So this is just
even in the Valley. So this is-
modification of
there's
scale.
a lot of experience with that.
This is just a question of scale, essentially.
Yeah, and so it'll be the first to take recycle water from a water reclamation facility, put it through another process, create drinking water, inject it into the aquifer and extract it. So it'll be the first for that.
Gotcha. All right.
So it was done as a pilot project already several years ago. This was permitted and done as a pilot, but now this will be the full scale.
All right. Thank you. That's
Okay, let's open up a public comment at this time. Do we have any public comment?
No public comment in chambers, and no hands raised via Zoom.
Okay, we'll close public comment, bring it back to the board. Do we have any other questions? I would like to say great job on the presentation. I did go through this packet, and you guys have done a fantastic job, so thank you for your hard work and dedication. All right, if there's no other questions, discussion, I'll accept a motion. Oh, I think it was just to remove those 15 parking spots, right? Do you have a written revised motion that we can put up there? Or can we just ad lib?
Tim Evans, planner. So there is a revised motion. If you want to put my PowerPoint back up.
Okay. All right, go ahead.
Kathy Julian, for the record, I move that after giving reasoned consideration to the information contained in the staff report and information received during the public hearing, the Washoe County Board of Adjustment approve with conditions special use permit case number WSUP 25-0005 for Truckee Meadows Water Authority, with the conditions included as Exhibit A to this matter, having made all 5 findings in accordance with Washoe County Code Section 110.810.30. I further move to waive the civic use landscaping standards of Article 412 of the Washoe County Development Code and remove Condition 1G of Exhibit A concerning the minimum parking spaces required.
All right, this is Rob. I'll second it. So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Motion passes unanimously. Good job. Thank you. Good job, Tim. All right, that moves us on to item number 9, chair and board items, future agenda items. Anybody have any requests? Request for information from staff. Report of previous Board of Adjustment items.
Nothing to report.
Okay. Legal?
2 updates on previous items, both the Pro Pony Silver Circle Ranch matter and the Gary Schmidt writ regarding the appeal route have been appealed to the Supreme Court.
Yeah. The Pro Pony was done.
Nay.
Good one. Public comment. Do we have any final public comment?
No public comment in chambers or via Zoom.
All right, 4:12, we're adjourned. Thank you.